Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to my shop. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. Was enjoying a really relaxing night at home thinking, man, I really should be doing something. I wonder what that... And then Sarah's like, are we doing a live tonight? And I'm like, oh yes, there's a live. I need to get downstairs and finish setting up. So yes, we are here. Woo, life is fun. Lots of fun things coming up. We just came back from a weekend with 2 different woodworking shows, which was kind of cool. And then coming up at the end of this month, I believe it's the 28th through the 1st, is the national meet in Michigan City, Iowa, and Michigan City, Indiana. And it is the largest tool sale in the world. And if you could pick one day to be there, Thursday morning at sunrise is the day to be there. Tool sales and deals like you've never seen before. So an entire parking lot filled with cars with just tools for sale. And then on Friday and Saturday we go inside and the tool sale is indoors, and it is an incredible amount of fun. On top of that, on Thursday, I'm actually going to be doing a tool demonstration. And so that is free. Anyone can come to that. You don't have to be a member of the MWTCA to come to that. But you do have to be a member to come to the regular tool meets. And if you want to find out more information about it, go to mwtca.org. Links to that down below. Also, I got a nose here driving me bonkers here. I just got word that the Southwest Tool Collecting Organization Association is about to start back up again. They disappeared back in like 2016, but it sounds like they're going to get up and going again. There is a meet coming up in Oklahoma, outside of Tulsa, I believe it is, in October 8th, I want to say. So if you want information on that, send me a link. Their website isn't up to date because they haven't officially gotten up and going, but they have in the past done them in Texas and Oklahoma and that area. So if you are in that area and are looking for tool sales, hey, they're coming back, and you can get in touch with the club and organization for that. Other things, sneak peek. It's almost finished mounting. So this is a different one from the big one I got earlier. I just bought this one, which is a smaller one, which will fit in this bench. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I'll have a video showing you what all exactly this thing is, but stay tuned because it's got lots of fun things to it. Let's see, we got that. What other fun things are coming up? I think that's it for right now. Yeah, we got other interesting things. Oh, I did find out I'm going to be speaking at the Workbench Con in March. So if you're going to be coming out to Workbench Con, stay tuned for that. Should be a fun one. Yeah, Q&A. So if you have questions, throw those down in the comments down below. If you are watching this recorded, then I'm going to have timestamps beside all the questions down in the description. So you can go down there and read through all the questions and find the ones you want and click on the timestamp and go straight to that point in the video, or at least close to it within a minute or so of the timing. And I have to remember we started later, so I'm going to have to change the times around later. Yeah.
Oh.
I have to worry about it. Don't worry. You just put the normal times on there. If you are watching this live, go ahead and throw your questions in the chat, and we will answer as many of them as we can. So that being said, what's the first question?
Hang on.
Now that I can take a breath.
Yeah, it's kind of like... All right, Kenny-Anjanette Horn asked, if you were making a 1/4 inch wide stopped groove, say for a drawer bottom, what tool would you use?
A 1/4 inch chisel. Yeah, honestly, it would be a 1/4 inch chisel. It sounds kind of scary, but what you do is you use a larger chisel, like a 1 or 1.5 inches, and use that to define the sidewalls, and then you come in with a 1/4 inch chisel and pare it out. You can use a router if the groove is long enough. You use a router to do the majority of it, and then just a 1/4 inch chisel when you get to the ends to finish those out. But I have several videos on how to make a stopped groove. But yeah, a 1/4 inch chisel. It's one of those scary things that you might just say, well, you just carve it, because that's really what it is. It's using a chisel to carve, except for rather than cutting organic flowing surfaces, you're carving a rectangular slot into wood. But it actually goes really fast, and it is an incredibly enjoyable process. Anytime you can just remove wood freehand with a chisel, it is a lot of fun. You keep looking at me like I'm missing something.
No, someone's saying that it sounds like a static buzz from time to time, but I'm wondering if it's this.
Oh, because the...
With the fan.
Yeah, could be. Could also be something on the other end. YouTube lives are always their own fun thing. Hey, at least this is over the computer rather than on the phone. What's next?
Let's see, Warren Munn. At what size does a piece of off-cut / scrap become firewood?
That is very different for everyone. If you are a furniture maker, it's usually if it's under a foot, you throw it out. If you are a turner on a lathe, it doesn't get thrown out until it is dust. So it's one of those things where it doesn't matter. For me, I kind of view it as, is it worth my time and money to do it? In other words, if I need this piece, is it worth my time and money? So is it a $1 piece of white oak, or is it a piece of something exotic I have to order in? And if I need that particular piece, it's going to cost me through the mouth. And in that case, I'm going to save some really small pieces. But if it's something like white oak, I have a whole pile over there that is, people are probably going to, here, I'll turn around and show you. This pile here, which is out of focus, these are all scraps. That top board is about 2.5 foot long. But that's all scrap that I'm either going to burn or give away. Because it's too small for me. It's not worth the expenditure. I mean, even, let's see, this piece right here, that's a small scrap of walnut. I don't need it. I got a couple pieces down there of 2-inch thick stuff that just, it isn't worth it to me because I can get white oak relatively affordably. And if I need something that size, I'm just going to cut it out of stock that I have, and it's not worth trying to save it for that particular use. But in the end, it kind of comes down to you. Everyone's going to have their own deal. I actually have a whole video dedicated to what lumber to save and what lumber to get rid of. I don't remember what I named that one. But yeah, everyone's different. What's next?
I love how you're just like, this is the busiest life for Sarah. What's next? You're glad I'm back this week, aren't you? Aren't you?
Yeah, I love Q&As because I don't have to set up anything. Like I came down here 10 minutes ago, and Sarah then has to really work at these ones. So,
Sumi, you're right. We missed your. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's
Sumi.
right. You put up the super chat early.
We must stop. I had a joke.
You want to give me a cue while you're looking for that?
No, I got it.
Oh, what is it?
What did the cannibal choose as his last meal?
What?
Five Guys. And if we have people here who don't know what Five Guys is, it's a burger chain.
I like that one. What's next?
Daughters.
Or did they have a? They have a question?
Give me a second, man.
Come on, babe.
Yeah, maybe you should double my wages, huh?
Fine, I'll double them. For that, I'll triple them.
Ken Carlile. Any tips on, or is there a video about, doing an epoxy fill on a knothole or other relatively small feature like a burl without a vacuum chamber?
I don't actually have a video on that. Like bug holes can often be a pain because you get little bubbles in there, and when you actually smooth them out, then the bubble shows up and you have a new hole where the old hole used to be, and it's really annoying. Usually for small things, I actually use a tinted CA glue, cyanoacrylate super glue, as opposed to epoxy, because epoxy doesn't soak into small spaces. Basically, my go-to is if the hole is larger than an 1/8 inch, I'll use epoxy. If it's smaller than an 1/8 inch, I use super glue. Because super glue you can pour into the hole and it won't leave the voids in there. And you can buy tinted super glue, or you can actually make it yourself. You can open up the bottle and add a couple drops of dye. Yeah, I don't do a whole lot of that because I like to keep the features in there, but sometimes I do, and that's my go-to. If they're small, super glue. If they're larger, epoxy. So that might make an interesting video. I might have to think about that one. What's next? Uh-oh, she's chortling.
I'm reading at a joke that I had saved.
Oh. Quick, someone throw a super chat so we can hear it.
I forgot I had saved it. I was like, oh, I still like that one. Anyways, Alex, the wooden fence on the Stanley 45 is a bit small height. Is there a problem of making it longer? Just did it on mine and trying to see if it would be an issue.
The wooden fence is a small height. There's really no issue with it. The problem with is if you make it any taller, then you're going to run into issues if you're up against if you're on the bench top. Here, let me show you. Shorter. Shorter. That's Sarah. So here, got the Stanley 45 here. So if the fence here is about an inch tall, if you were to make it longer, that would give you more of a reference surface. But if it's longer, then it can run into anything. Like if you have a board clamped on the bench, if that board is down here, if it's longer, it'll run into the bench. And so you generally want this pretty small. I don't know why you would want to make it longer. It might help you in keeping this at 90 degrees, but then again, might not. But yeah, I don't know why you would want to make it longer, but you can. They're just held on there. There's a couple screws in the body, boom and boom. At least in this style. There's another one where it pivots, but you can take those screws out, slap on another piece of wood, and you're good to go. You can make it whatever you want to make it. But yeah, let me know why you would want it to be longer. What's next?
All right, let's see. Matt Cottrill. Are you coming to the Patina meet at the end of the month in Maryland?
I would love to. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to. I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. this weekend, and then I'm back for a week, and then I'm going to MWTCA National Meet, and so I'm just not going to be able to fly out for that one. I would love to. That one is a fun one. The Patina group is a really cool group. And for those of you who don't know, there are tool collecting organizations all around the U.S. and in other countries, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, UK, there's a couple others. If you go to handtoolfinder.com, I have a whole list of tool collecting groups, and you can see if there's one near you. MWTCA is kind of like the big one, and it's a lot of people are members of the MWTCA and their local group, because the MWTCA has a lot of overlap with other group areas, and sometimes they'll often do meets together. So, what's next?
Let's see. Ken Carlile asked, at what point do you have too many vices attached to your bench?
When you run out of bench to attach them to. Honestly, if I had a good leg vise and a good end face vise, that's all I would ever need. I don't need anything more. The reason I have multiple vices on my bench is I have to teach it, and it's often very useful for me to teach other methods and other clamping techniques. And if I'm limiting myself to a couple vices, then I'd be limiting my education applications. So do you need to have these? Absolutely not. One good leg vise, one end face vise, that's all you need. You can do everything and anything with those. But if I want to actually show other applications, I have to have those vices mounted. So do you need them? No. Do I need them? Yes. Right, sir?
Or you just steal your wife's bench so she can't even use her vice. But I won't go there. And Ken's like, it was a joke. And I was like, no, I want to hear James's answer on this.
No, actually, I do get that question quite a bit. It's like, you have too many vices. Or, do I really need all those vices? No. What do you got?
I thought you were going to say you can never have too many vices, like you can never have too many clamps.
Yeah, kind of like you can never have too many wives. Okay, yes, you can. One's enough.
I'd like to see you try.
What's next? Well, this live took a different
This might
turn.
get a record number of glares in this live. C. Joe asked, did you buy that number 45 sealed in the box?
This 45, no. This one I actually purchased. Let's see. Oh, this was Facebook Marketplace. A guy listed a 45 for $45, and he was about an hour away. So I drove up there and I bought it, This is when I was first getting started. I saw a 45 listed. It's like, I gotta have it. And it was just the body, the fence, the rails, the basic, what you see here, plus I think it was a 1/2-inch knife that I got with it. And so no, I do not have the box for my 45, 50, or 55. But I now have all of the parts that would have naturally come with them. So I can actually demonstrate all those things. But usually when someone's looking for a 45 and they're wanting one with all of the parts, it's really not necessary. I mean, if you go your entire woodworking career and use 50% of the parts, you've actually done really well. Most people never use them all. So I generally suggest get a cheap 45 or 50 that doesn't have the cutters, like has one cutter with it. And then you can individually buy the cutters as you need them, because you can pick them up for about $5 a piece, or you can even buy the new Veritas ones. They work in there too.
Okay, they meant from this weekend. You took a picture of a Stanley.
Oh, that one this weekend. So you should have thrown something at me.
I didn't get the clarification until after you were talking.
No, I did not buy that one. I was at the MWTCA meet in Gettysburg, and I bought 3 45s there for $25 a piece, and I don't need any more. I bought those ones because I want to do a video showing some of the differences of them, and one of them is really rusted, and I want to do a before and after video. That would be kind of fun. But yeah, I have no need for them. I buy tools that I can make a video on. I don't buy them because I need them, because I don't need any more. You really don't need all the tools. I mean, you need them, but you don't need them all.
You did not give a warning to tell them to turn down their speaker.
For what?
If significant others were listening in.
Oh. Yes. What's next?
Let's see. Tiny Woodshop. Did you buy any planes this past weekend?
No. I bought. Actually, the only thing I bought for myself, here, I've got it here in my pocket. I actually haven't taken it out of my pocket since then. I got these. They are saw nuts, medallions. So these are Atkins saw nut medallions. Ooh, come on, give me a focus. There we go. That's all I bought for me. I bought a plane for a friend, and I bought a set of clamps for a friend. Yeah, that's all I bought. I mean, I rarely buy. I mean, there's very, very little that I don't have, unless there's something really cool, like, oh, that would make a fantastic video. People would love to see that weird, dumb thing. And so I buy a lot of tools that have almost no use in the shop, but they make a good video. So, yeah.
Or you strap them to water rockets.
What's that?
Or you strap them to water rockets.
Yes. I should do that. A water rocket powered hand plane.
Wasn't that what did you, wait?
No, I did a chemical rocket.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, a while ago I did a video on rocket powered hand planes. So that's definitely worth a look. It's a good video.
That's what you need to put on a reel.
Yeah, I should download that and redo that one. Rocket powered hand plane. What's next?
All right, sorry, we digress. I can't read. Lynx G. Ooh, I feel like it's gonna hit me in the head. Okay, here's a question. Best wood to make a mortar and pestle. And alternatively, how bad would it be to make one out of purple or green heartwood?
I don't know if I would make one out of wood. I guess if you're grinding up smaller things, you just have to understand that they're going to wear out rather quickly, not as like a stone or a porcelain wood. But generally, the harder the better. And so green heart, yellow heart, purple heart, those are really hard woods. Those would be good. Australian ironwood, yeah, that would be a good one to make it out of. I'm trying to think if there's anything particular. Yeah, most of the time, if any hard wood has a pretty tight grain structure, and so you're not going to get deep variations in that. I wouldn't make it out of anything that is heavily ring porous, like oak or ash, because then you have a lot of spot for things to get into. trying to think if I had to make it out of if it was domestic wood, it would probably be American beech or rock maple, iron maple, sugar maple. But if it were anything in the world, yeah, it'd probably be something like a Purple Heart. The Purple Heart isn't that much harder than hard maple. Maybe in beech, but yeah, something like that. What's next?
Makes me want to know what they're going to put in the mortar and pestle.
Yeah, you have to grind up something pretty soft. I mean, because you're going to be grinding the same wood against the surface, so it's going to wear out relatively quickly.
I mean, I guess you could epoxy it or something, and then it would.
I wouldn't want to mess with epoxy. If anything, you'd want to grind up to eat.
Well, that's why I want to know what's going in the mortar and pestle, because I went to meds right away.
Oh, okay, there you go.
I went back to the 1700s, apparently, when I went medicinal. Anyways, I was like, what else would you use it for? And then I was like, oh, yeah, the kitchen.
Seasons and flowers. And
I get that. Oh, this is going to kill me. I like this name, Chickenator. What type brand of chisels do you use?
I use the Lynx Richter chisels. These, if you haven't seen it, I have a video, actually like a full series on doing chisel tests, and I go into deep detail. Honestly, I have yet to see a chisel test online or anywhere that goes into, number one, that many chisels, and number two, that much of objective testing. In other words, I crank everything down to the numbers. And what I've tried to do with that is I have a spreadsheet with all the numbers in it, and it breaks it down into the different characteristics such as hardness, durability, sharpenability, feel, and then each one of those different characteristics you can give it a number of 1 to 10 and say hardness is the most important thing to me and feel is less important. And so you can put in what's important to you, and it will spit out what is the best chisel for you by the numbers, in other words, the one that fits your characteristics the most. And for me, it's the Lynx Richter. So if you go to my website, woodbywright.com, I have a section of suggested tools, and these are what I generally consider to be the best chisel ever made. They are phenomenal chisels, but for the way I do them. Everyone's going to be a little bit different, so different people are going to want different things. Is that a super chat?
Yes.
Who's that from?
Peter DeWitt says, just for a mom joke.
Ah.
Okay, Peter, I hope you find this one as funny as I did. Why would a pig dressed in black never get bullied?
Why?
Because Batman has sworn to protect Gotham.
Yeah, that one's acceptable. I'll take that one. Gotham. Yes. I like it.
If you can throw Batman into anything, why not? All right. Oh, you're going to want, I almost said you're going to want a joke. You're going to want a question.
Yeah.
Hoptman 6. Planning an English jointer's bench, would 4x6 legs be recommended for the installation of a leg vise?
Well, you don't need a big leg to mount a leg vise to, because there'll basically be a nut that goes onto the back of the leg, and that's where your strength will come from. So the nut will spread out the force over the leg. So you could make it out of 2x material. And the problem with 2x material is your whole bench would end up being a little more shaky. So yeah, if you can make it out of 4x6, that's really good stuff. That'll make you a really stout, heavy-duty leg that will last. Generally, for a bench like that, I usually go for something like 3x3 or 4x4, something like that range. But 4x6, that would be an awesome leg. What?
Oh. Worth the effort crew. What snacks are in your shop right now? So I was looking around to see what you had for snacks, but you're very boring right now. We made ice cream. James made ice cream tonight.
I'm really only, well, you could say I'm a bit boring.
You said my jokes are bad. Anyway.
What's next?
Woo! very sassy tonight. Anyways, Cato Hostland asked, I have a question about combination planes. Do you feel that the Veritas one is worth it compared to the more expensive vintage ones? I am looking for a user combination plane.
The antiques are much cheaper, much cheaper. Like this weekend, there was one that was a 45 in the box with a full set of cutters for $75. And most of the time you can pick up 45 with one cutter for around 30, 40, $50, depending upon condition. And that's usually what I'm going to tell people is get a 45 or a 50, because for 99% of what you do, a 45 or a 50 will do you fine. And buy one that doesn't have the whole box and everything. You don't need the whole box and everything. You need the body, both skates, the fence, and 2 rods. You got those, and that's all you need. From that point on, you buy the cutters individually for the project you need. Don't buy a whole set. You'll never use the whole set. You'll get much better value out of buying them individually, which you can usually purchase for around $5 a piece. You can even buy the replacement Veritas cutters, and that's usually the way I go. Now, is the Veritas a good plane? It is a fantastic plane. It will treat you very well. If you've got the money for it, go for it. It's a really good plane, well thought out. Personally, I consider it to be slightly better than the antique Stanley, but not for the price. The extra bells and whistles it will get you aren't quite worth it to me. So that's my usual suggestion of get a 45 or a 50 that's the body and the pieces you need, and then buy the irons you need for it. Don't try and buy the whole thing. Try and buy the whole thing, and then you're going to be even with the 45. You buy the whole thing, it's probably still going to be cheaper than getting the Veritas. So at least that's my 2 cents on it. What's next?
Jules Keslar asks, will you ever show how to make a roorkee chair?
I don't know what a roorkee chair is. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if it's supposed to be rocking, and it came out roorkee.
Maybe rocking. Honestly, I don't like making chairs. It is one of those things that it really annoys me. I'm not. Just call me weird. I don't like making chairs. They're a lot of work with no benefit to me. So I don't make many chairs. I have made a lot of chairs in the past, and I made the dining room chairs from a kit because I needed dining room chairs, and a kit was easier than making them all from scratch. I made the Windsor chair upstairs because it was a kit, and a kit is easier than scratch. I have made a few chairs from scratch in the past, and I don't have much need for them, and so I generally don't want them. As to a rocking chair, I hate rocking chairs. I don't hate rocking chairs, but it's just like, if I'm given the choice to sit in any chair, a rocking chair is not going to be it. I don't like the rocking motion. That's just kind of like, no.
Okay, we got clarification. Roorkee campaign furniture.
Oh, yeah.
It was a typo, apparently.
Okay, that I might, because that's kind of fun. That's not like a standard chair. There's some possibility there. Am I going to make it anytime soon? No. I have a very, very long list. Maybe 4 or 5 years from now, maybe. But yeah, that would be far more fun than a regular chair. I haven't quite gotten into the campaign furniture kick, but I probably will at some point. Just not yet. What's next?
Worth the Effort wants to know, is green woodworking an arena of tool collection an area you've entered yet?
I have a solid collection of green woodworking tools. It is not an area of woodworking that I've dabbled in it and I've experimented with it. And again, it's one of those things that I haven't found as much pleasure with because it tends to be chairs and stools and things of that nature. And those just don't intrigue me that much. it's one of those things that one of these years I want to build in the backyard an outdoor shop and have a shave horse and have the spring pull lathe set up and do some of that fun stuff. I've dabbled in all of them before, and none of it has really drawn me in enough to keep me there. But if I build the shop and I designated a summer for it, then I probably would do a decent amount of it. Again, it kind of comes down to what really intrigues me. And that's really kind of the key of all Wood by Wright, is I focus on what intrigues me. Because if I'm not really interested in what I'm doing, the videos aren't going to be any fun to watch. And I really want to encourage people to focus on what really intrigues you. What gets you up in the morning? What do you dream about at night? What is that one thing you're trying to figure out? I wonder how I could do that. That's where you should spend your time, because that's where the enjoyment comes out, is when you really get to wonder about things and experiment and try new things and just have some fun in the shop. And that's really what I want to encourage people to do. And so if I'm not experimenting, trying new things, and having fun in the shop, then I'm kind of missing the whole point of Wood by Wright. So, yeah. Okay, I'll get off that soapbox. What's next?
Just so people know, we're at the point where we have several pulled out. I'm not sure from this point on
We'll have enough to finish all the questions.
that we'll be able to get to them. We might. It just kind of depends on how long you talk.
So what you got?
Okay, hang on.
I'm hanging.
Let's see. Jules Keslar. Would you ever teach at one of the woodworking schools or start your own school?
I have done one-day classes at a couple of them, and I'm open to it. I generally don't ask to go teach at anyone, but I've occasionally had someone say, "Hey, can you come do a session on this?" And I've done that. It is kind of in my dream to eventually build a shop out, and I've talked about it on a couple of videos. I have a space out beside the house I want to put in about a 20 by 30 shop. And part of that would be having a series of benches in there and hosting classes. And I think that would be a lot of fun. But I don't have the funds. I don't have the funds right now. I do not have the finances at this moment to do that. So sometime in the future I'll have that, but not right now. But yeah, if you want me to come teach at a place, then get them in touch with me and maybe we can set up. It is always fun to go do that. I've done an intro to dovetails several times and do an entire day focusing on different types of dovetails and how to cut them and do one-on-one and that type of thing. I've done a few other things, but those are the big ones. What's next?
Sorry. I was trying not to do it before you asked me. Jose Morale asked, any tips and tricks for building up several coats of spar varnish? When attempting to build coats, it appears to dissolve the preceding coat.
Yeah, well, it doesn't actually dissolve the previous coat. It melts the previous coat but bonds into it. A lot like shellac, but not quite as much as shellac. I'm not the best person to ask that because I generally stay away from varnish. I use it for marine varnish for outdoor applications. It has a really good application there, but for most things, I have very little desire to do it because I don't like the finished look itself. So it's one of those things I don't do quite as much. So sorry, but I'm probably not the right person to ask the question on that. The general rule of thumb is less application, more coats. So the thinner the better, the more the better. At least when you're trying to get that high gloss look. But yeah, have fun. What's next?
Let's see. Benjamin Guerrero asked, thoughts on using a scraping plane with a sharp iron. I haven't mastered sharpening scrapers, and Vic Tesolin once showed you could sharpen the iron like a regular plain one. Yes,
like the cabinet scrapers, like a Stanley 80, Stanley 12. The irons come with a 45 degree. Here, let's see if I can get this on here. Focus on there. So I don't know if you can see this, but the edge of this is ground at a 45 degree. And some people will use it 45 degree and not turn a burr on it. And you can get scraping with that, but the problem with that is it wears out very, very fast. You run the edge off of that, and you're ended up having to resharpen it very often. But you can do that. What most people do with that is they actually turn a burr on that 45 degree. So you have the 45 degree wedge, and you actually kind of burr that over. And that goes really, really quickly. Because if you sharpen it to 45 degrees, you take the burnisher and you just go zhink, 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 and you've got a burr on there. It is very quick, very easy. You can put a burr on there instantly and it will last much longer. I tend to find I get better shavings with that. And I have several videos on that. If you look up how to sharpen a Stanley 80, you'll see videos on that. But can you use it without the burr? Yes. It works better with the burr though. So I hope that answers your question. But yeah, figuring out how to get that burr on a scraper is one of the big turning points in woodworking. In all honesty, I think there's three big turning points in woodworking. The first one is sharpening an edge. Why did I go with my ring finger first? The first one is sharpening an edge.
Remind you the important things in life.
The important things to do. Sharpening an edge on a chisel, a plane blade, until you can get that actually truly sharp and not just what you think is sharp. That is the first game changer. The second one is learning to saw straight. Once you can saw and follow a line, the world is your oyster. Everything becomes so much easier. Tasks just work, and woodworking becomes just a joy. And then the third one is sharpening a card scraper. And all three of those will give you endless amounts of frustration. And they'll drive you up a wall until you master it. Once you master it, it's just like this light bulb moment where everything makes sense. And getting a card scraper to work right is one of those things that the only way you're going to learn, unless you have someone there with you, showing you, holding your hand, it's one of those things where you got to bang your head against a wall. Set aside a whole day and just go at it again and again and again and again. The two most common problems, number one, is that the scraper is at the wrong angle. At least that I've found, is a lot of people will turn a burr and they don't know that they have a burr turned on there because they're holding at the wrong angle. You want it to be at 90 degrees to the plate, and you'll scrape and you won't feel anything, and then you'll move it forward, and as soon as it goes forward, it'll catch. And at whatever angle it catches, as high as it can be, that's the angle you want it to be. If it comes up any higher, you're not going to get anything. It goes down any lower, and you're going to be getting a lot of dust. You want to find that right angle. And that's probably the most common problem I've seen that people have. The second one, sorry, I was just missing. Okay, the second one is what wood you're practicing on. A lot of people think, I'm going to practice on pine. Pine is so much easier to work with. And with a card scraper, pine is one of the hardest woods to do. Pine is just a pain. The harder the wood is, the easier it is to scrape. So if you want to learn scraping, try with hard maple first. Something really dense and really hard, and it scrapes incredibly easily. And if you can get it on that, then try something a little softer, maybe an oak. Oak's a bit stringy. That's kind of fun. It works a little bit differently, and you can start to work down until you get to the softer woods. Mastering a really soft wood with a card scraper is a very hard thing to do. So work with the hard things first and then get softer. What's next?
Let's see. Woodworking with Logan has more of a YouTube question. I find myself not recording due to the camera being in the way / getting caught up in the project. Would there be a better style for me, or just have a choppy video?
It all comes down to your style. What I personally try to do is I try and get 6 to 12 clips of any particular operation, and I try and shoot them from different angles. Now, I have a bonus that for a lot of my regular videos, I pay Luke to come down and he shoots them for me, and so he can stay out of my way and I can just work, and it's amazing. It's just like fun. I zone out and I get to working and I have a good bit of time, and he'll be like, whoa, hold on, I have to catch that. And so he'll be like this active tripod that gets out of my way, and it's really kind of cool. When I have to shoot them myself, I will probably spend about 60 to 70% of the time setting up the camera and only 30 to 40% of the time actually doing work. So it's one of those things that really slows you down. But having a camera with a boom makes it great because then you can stick it out over the bench into a spot that you're not working in and come at it from a different angle. I've seen quite a few that will mount to the ceiling and have an arm that comes down so you don't have a tripod in your way. You can put the camera around. Those are the big things to get it out of the way. But yeah, shooting footage while working is a pain and a half. There ain't no easy way to do it other than paying someone to do it for you. Is that another super chat? Who's that? Ramswood Burns? Any what?
Pool projects.
Oh, let me see. Actually, I've got a list over here. I've got some fun ones. Let me go down the list and give you an idea of what I've got coming up. I want to make a small curio shelf here soon for Pacific Northwest Tool Favors, which is kind of fun. At the Pacific Northwest Tool Show at the Best in the West, they make favors, which are a reproduction and smaller version of a previous tool, such as the depth stop that I've gotten an axe head. This year they did a squirrel tail plane and cool things like that. So I want to have a shelf to show those off. I've got 2 back saws that I'm working on. 3 of them actually. Panel. I got this this weekend's video is going to be a hidden screw chisel plane that I make. I've got a plane restoration. I've got the rest of the end table to build. What other things do I have coming down the pipeline? Oh, the really cool one that I want to get on here soon is actually making an infill plane with brass sides and a stainless steel bottom, and infill that. And last year in November, we did a charity giveaway, a charity auction on Can I Have It? And to the charity, I said, I will make that for you. And I've attempted starting it 3 or 4 times now, and I just haven't gotten around to it. So I really need to focus and get that done here soon. But yeah, it's coming up. Fun infill with the dovetailed sole and cool things like that. Then I've got a few other small projects coming up. But I'm hoping to do another piece of furniture early next year. So stay tuned. Need something?
Batteries?
For
my thing?
Off to your right on the wall, up above, blue thing.
Oh yeah, they're like right in front of my face.
You got a question?
Hang on.
Okay, I'm hanging.
Because they're not going to be able to hear me.
Alright, I'm going to be loud for a second. Let's see.
I'll read it.
You're going to read it?
No, I'll revamp what you say.
Ken Carlile, theoretically, if someone was to lend you a Veritas combination plane, could you do a test on what a 45 and 55 cutters work with?
So if someone were to lend me a Veritas combination plane, could I do a test in comparison between the 45 and the 55? Yes, yeah. And it will do, all of the cutters will work with the 45 and 55. All of them will work with the 55, but there are a few that will work with the 55 that won't work with the 45 because the 45 can't do them. But yeah, if someone wanted to send me one, it'd be kind of fun to do. I've played with them in the past, but not in my own shop where I can do a video. So yeah, it'd be interesting. But I haven't done that yet, so that'd be fun. You got it back up?
Yes.
Yeah. What's next?
Let's see. Oh, mom joke. You ready?
Yep.
What happens when you slap Dwayne Johnson in the butt?
You hit the rock in a hard place?
You hit rock bottom.
Uh-huh. They both work pretty well.
No, that's see if you're on the ground, he sits on you. Then you're between rock and a hard place. Anyways, question. We just asked that one. Marshall Murrell, I have a number 3 smoothing plane that belonged to my dad. It's kind of small for my hands. I've been wanting to get a number 4 or 4.5. Which would you recommend?
That's a very personal question. There are a lot of people out there who will say The 4.5 is so much better as a smoother. It's a fantastic plane. It'll do anything the 4 will do. The 4.5 is the better plane. And there's other people who say, no, the 4.5 is the one you really want. It'll do anything the 4.5 will do without all the weight and the hassle. And to find out which camp you're in, you've got to play with both and see. I'm in the camp that I have the 4 and I have the 4.5. I almost never reach for my 4.5. The only time I reach for my 4.5 is when all of my 5s and my 4 are both dull. Then I might reach for the 6 or the 5.5. And when that's dull, then I'll reach for the 4.5. It's one of those that I don't use that much. And when I got it, I thought, fantastic, I finally got a 4.5. The world is my oyster. And I found out I just didn't use it as much as I thought I would. It just takes a little bit more effort to run. It is heavier. And I find that I can actually do the same work faster with the 4. Even though it doesn't cover as much space, I can run it faster than I can the 4.5. But again, it's a really personal question. So different people will want different things. So from my book, get the 4. But you may find you're a 4.5 guy. So who knows? And you'll never know until you try them both. Not the answer you want, I know, but the answer I can give you. What's next?
Clockman45 asked, when you were there, I'm assuming at the meet this weekend, how much did a 4.5 cost?
There was, I know of a couple, well, 4.5. 4.5s are expensive. This weekend, I know I saw one 4.5 that was $40. It wasn't in great shape. It would need a decent amount of work, but it was $40, which was a pretty good price for a 4.5. Most of the time, they're around 60, 65, 70, 80, depending upon their condition. If they're really good condition, 100, 120. So that's about the going rate for a 4.5. Now, a 4, on the other hand, I saw several good user 4s that would just need a cleanup and a sharpen for $10. And you'll often see them for anywhere from $5 to $20. That's about the going rate at most tool meets. Even out at the Pacific Northwest, I was seeing them for $20, $25. So, yeah. What's next?
Let's see. James Zano asked, what is your view on making your own hide glue?
Don't. I've done it a couple times for videos, and it is a lot of work, and it doesn't really give you any more benefit than buying pre-made flake glue. Generally, if I'm going to be using hide glue, I'm actually going to use liquid hide glue like Tite Bond or Old Brown. I like that. If I'm doing hide glue, that's the direction I'm going to go. It's quick, it's easy, and functionally, it's the exact same stuff. It's not going to be a functional difference, and it's miles easier. Making your own glue is time-consuming. It's fun. Smells horrible, but it does have its own sense of I made this, which is kind of fun. But yeah, I generally don't. Did that answer what was his question? Any tips on it, or
What's your view on making your own hide
glue?
glue?
I answered that. That's my view.
I couldn't answer that one. Things that inspire me asked, is there any advantage to double beveled chisels? I noticed, is it Fiel? P-F-I-E-L? File. Make some for carving.
Double bevel. Oh, yeah. Well, for carving, there's a few instances, especially when you look at skews. And you needing to get into things, they're great for getting into that corner because it's easier to push straight in than it is to push at an angle in. And so there are a few uses in carving. In general woodworking, no. There's not much you would want one for average woodworking. But if you're really getting into detail carving, eventually you're going to want a couple double bevels straight and a couple different angled skews. But for regular woodworking, no. There's almost no use for that. So, yeah. What's next?
Let's see. JR Brick Builders. Have you ever tried branding a logo on a piece of wood that is already stained and finished?
Yes.
Any tips for doing so without the brand turning out like garbage?
No. It's one of the things with branding is you're always going to get some bleed over and must out, and especially if it's finished, you're going to get some finish boil off. Yeah, there really is no good way of branding over finish. It can be done, and if you want that authentic branded look, it works really well. But it's going to have that spillover. If you want a nice clean look to it, you've got to do it before the finish, and then you've got to like do a quick sand over the surface, and then you finish over top of that. And you get a really crisp brand that looks sharp. But doing it over the finish, no, there's no good way of doing that. It ain't gonna look good no matter what you do, unless you really like that branded schmoo fog and haze, then it's okay. What's next?
Let's see. Pacific Coast Piper asked, getting any ideas for wood project, Sarah?
She's got some ideas.
I have ideas.
The big problem is time, because when she has time off work, we do family things.
Well, occasionally, I've threatened James that I would just come down and use all the tools and just do it without supervision.
When have you had the energy to do that?
Oh, now it just became a challenge.
Tomorrow morning, my shop.
You know that was the wrong answer. Except I have to be at work at 7:15 in the morning.
Yeah, that's why I know you got work issues.
Oh, but it's on. It's on. You just said I couldn't do something. Anyways, it's not a problem I have. Kevin Henderson, what paint or finish do you recommend for outdoor applications?
Okay, the problem is with outdoor, you have to understand something different. Whenever you're going to do a finish outdoor, you have to redo it every year or two. If you want it to look good, it has to be redone every couple years at most. Most of the time it's like every year, and sometimes even more often than that. So once you understand that, it doesn't matter what finish it is, it's going to have those problems. It depends on its application. If you want a glossy surface, marine varnish is the way to go. Use a penetrating epoxy and then finish it off with a marine varnish that seals the wood, and it looks great, but you're going to have to touch it up in a year or two. If you let it go any longer than that, and the whole thing cracks apart, and you got to go grind it all off and put a whole new coat on it. And so marine varnish is usually the way to go. If you don't want a glossy surface, then if you don't want a glossy surface, then it's going to be an oil finish. And once you get into oil finishes, you have to reapply them every 6 months to a year, especially if they're in the sunlight. If they're getting direct sunlight, you're refinishing them every 6 months to a year. And so that's why I generally don't suggest people do linseed oil and paste wax for outdoor finishes, because it washes out pretty quickly and you have to reapply it. The nice thing is that it reapplies very, very quickly. Now that being said, I really want to try Rubio Monocoat exterior, because I've heard some really good things about it. If it's anything like their interior stuff, it's the bee's knees and awesome. But I haven't had a chance to try it yet. So I might have to put an exterior project on my list, although we're going into winter here, so that's probably not going to work. But sometime I'm going to give it a try. So yeah, that's my go-to. If it's going to be outdoor furniture, I'm usually going to be doing marine varnish and just understanding I'm going to have to redo it every year or two. But I do want to try Rubio exterior. So if any of you have a chance, any of you have tried that, let me know your thoughts on it. I'd love to hear that. And we'll see how that goes. Next.
All right.
How many we got left?
I have 2 more pulled out, and those are probably the last 2
Let's
we're
get those
do.
2 and call it.
Alex asked about, going back to the card scraper question, is there such a thing as too much burr or too rough a burr?
Yes and no. Too rough a burr, no, because if you have a rough burr, there are times where you actually want to do stock removal with a card scraper. And in that case, I don't use, speak of which, I don't use a burnishing rod to pull the burr on it. I just use a file. And so I use a file just like I would joint the surface, and I'll run that 3 or 4 times, and you get a really heavy, rough burr. And it's a very, very coarse burr sticking off of there. But it digs in very nicely, and you can really crank through some wood. It doesn't give you a great surface, but you can actually use it to do some stock prep. So if you're getting down through some tear out, or you're working on some really wild grain, a lot of times I'll do that to get down to it. And then I will use the burnishing rod to come in and get myself a nice clean surface. As to, can you use too much? Yes, another problem that a lot of people have is they push too hard on the rod. And what that can do is if you push too hard and too often, rather than the hook sticking out a little ways, that hook continues to curl around. And it can curl around and around and around until it's no longer hooking out. You want it to be hooking out from the plate. If it's curling all the way around and you keep pushing it, it curls further and further, well then the hook is going in and this rounded surface isn't going to cut anything. And so that's usually one of the problems, that people do it too much or too hard, and that can curl the burr too far. So that's, I hope that answers your question. Yes, you can curl it too far, and you can make it too rough, though sometimes you want it to be rough. Right, sir? Okay, next question. that looked me midnight. What we got, babe?
Someone in the chat was talking about I should use your chisels, you know, when you're
She does.
when
They're
you're
the-
not
they're
here.
chisels in
I
the
know.
shop.
I said that they're not your chisels; they're our chisels, and he's like
What-
sacrilege
what's
to
mine
touch
is
a
hers,
man's
what's hers is
chisels.
hers.
And I was thinking, you just use it as an excuse to buy new chisels, as if I did anything to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's not going to bother you.
Go for it, babe. I have rubber floors. It's okay.
What are you implying about me, my dear?
You're close to the ground. Last question.
Last question. William Brown. I found a D15 for $5 at the flea market. The one with the rosewood handle and the victory etch. The plate had a kink in the past that has been hammered out. Is this a usable saw or a wall hanger?
Give it a cut. If it cuts straight, you can use it. If it doesn't cut straight, probably not. I mean, if you can still read the etch and the handle looks good, there are some people who will pay a few pretty pennies for that. That's almost a collector's piece. If it gets a kink, that's often a deal breaker. They're really, really hard to get a good kink out. But sometimes it can be done, and sometimes it's done well, and the only way you know is to make a cut. If it cuts straight and true, then it's a good saw. So yeah, give it a whirl and see what happens. Because honestly, that's the only problem, is if it doesn't cut straight, then it's a problem. If it does cut straight, then it's not a problem. So yeah. I think that will do it. I don't know what next week's will be. I had something planned, but I don't remember what it was off the top of my head. But for those of you coming to the MWTCA meet in the end of this month, I'm really looking forward to seeing you. It is going to be a lot of fun, and lots of tools for sale. So stay tuned for all those lives, and we'll have a good time between now and then. So I think that'll do it for now, unless I forget anything. Have a wonderful day. Bye.